Hi, this is Eric Baker from Baker Gardening and Gift, and today I'm going to talk about how to plant a perennial within an existing perennial bed. Of course, the first thing you need to do is make sure you have enough space for the plant. A good way to do that is by setting out where it goes. And we decided to plant this sedum right next to this other sedum. So we're going to go right through here. So the most important thing is to prep your soil. So we're going to push back all this mulch and try to give as much space as possible to start prepping our ground. I like to dig into empty tree pot. Some people like to do a wheelbarrow, or you could put a tarp on the ground, but the key is that we're going to amend the soil as we dig. So for every one or two scoops of your existing soil, I will put a scoop of peat moss and help blend it in. Today's soil is a little bit wet, but we're still able to work with it. I like to blend the soil as I dig because when I backfill, I don't have to mix it up again. We are going to shoot for about twice the width of the pot that it came in and only the depth of the container. A nice wide hole is much better than a deep one. Next, we'll plant. Okay, we're ready to plant. So I got the hole nice and wide, not so deep. Got the soil ready to go, and I got my plant. So I'll gently take it out of the container. And we want to inspect the root system. Typically, this is not too pot bound, but we like to rough up the roots a little bit. This is actually in pretty good shape, so I'm just going to gently rough up some of the sides. Now I'm going to place in the hole and see how deep we are. Oh, we are a little bit on the deep side, so I'm going to fill up the bottom of the hole with a little bit soil. Okay, that's a lot better. Gently fill from a couple sides. I like using the bucket because it's easier to take the soil out. I always recommend trying to use up as much of the soil as possible because we always want to make sure our perennial is a little bit on the high side relative to other parts of the garden. If you run across a big chunk of our heavy clay soil, sometimes it's all right to just throw it back in the bucket. Makes it a little easier for backfilling. We'll gently push down with our hands to make sure we get soil packed in around it. Again, I'm trying to use up as much as the soil as possible. I'll gently pat it down with my feet, but try not to compress it too much. I like to incorporate a little bit of slow release fertilizer. This happens to be Osmocote. Nice thing about this is it releases over the next 2 or 3 months. And this plant will get an added boost as the roots grow into that area. Then of course, to push the mulch back around it. Mulch is important, so it doesn't allow us to need to weed, and it helps us with watering. Next, we'll go over how to water it. All right, since we pushed the mulch all back around it, all we need to do is water it. It's always good to get a good saturation the first time you water. So initially we're going to go right on top of the plant, making sure that the original soil that we planted in gets nice and wet. And then of course we're going to try to go all the way around and saturate the ground in which we dug up. The soil was pretty wet when we started, so we won't need to add as much water. But keep in mind that we'll try to water our newly planted plants. We'll check at least once a week. The mulch helps retain a lot of the moisture. We do not need to water every single day. But checking water once a week is a good way to, and giving it the volume of water that the container came in. So essentially we're giving it about a gallon of water right now. During the process of planting, if something were to break off, and I'll give you a good example of, let's say in the process we accidentally broke a branch, and that's fine. Cutting back some of the perennials when we plant is actually a pretty good idea. Do that on purpose. But it helps alleviate some of the transplant stress that sometimes we get when we transplant something. So by cutting back slightly, we'll encourage the growth to come up from within the plant, and the plant won't be burdened with the demand of watering. And of course it'll bloom just like it normally should, but it might be just a few weeks behind. But this is how we plant a perennial plant. This is Eric from Baker Garden and Gift.